the root, and the gathering of Israel. Chapter 5 of the hidden servant. Isaiah, the remnant, and the hidden pattern behind Zion's redemption. If Isaiah's servant passages establish that God works through a chosen, hidden, burden-bearing servant, whose mission reaches both Jacob and the nations, the next question is how that servant pattern is structured in latter-day revelation. That question leads directly to Isaiah 11 and Doctrine and Covenants 113, two of the most important texts in the entire framework of this book. These passages matter because they do not merely speak of a servant in general terms. They speak of a stem, a rod, a root, a branch, an ensign, priesthood, keys, and the gathering of Israel in the last days. In other words, they provide a latter-day architecture. If they are read too quickly or flattened into a single undifferentiated figure, the internal structure of the final dispensation is lost. Isaiah 11 is often remembered almost entirely for its millennial imagery. The wolf also shall dwell with the lamb, and the leopard shall lie down with the kid. Isaiah 11:6. But before the chapter becomes a vision of peace, it presents an ordered servant framework. And there shall come forth a rod out of the stem of Jesse, and a branch shall grow out of his roots. Isaiah 11:1. Later Isaiah adds, and in that day there shall be a root of Jesse, which shall stand for an ensign of the people. Isaiah 11:10. And then, he shall set up an ensign for the nations, and shall assemble the outcasts of Israel, and gather together the dispersed of Judah from the four corners of the earth. Isaiah 11:12. These are not random poetic ornaments. They are the language of ordered mediation before millennial consummation. The chapter therefore cannot be read faithfully if all the terms are simply collapsed together without distinction. Doctrine and Covenants 113 makes that need for distinction even sharper. Instead of leaving Isaiah 11 to broad speculation, the revelation asks directly, who is the stem of Jesse spoken of in the first, second, third, and fourth verses of the 11th chapter of Isaiah? And answers, verily thus saith the Lord, it is Christ. Doctrine and Covenants 113, 1-2. It then asks about the rod and the root, treating them as distinct matters requiring distinct clarification. Doctrine and Covenants 113, 3-6. The simple existence of those questions shows that the revelation does not invite an undifferentiated reading. If the stem, rod, and root were all obviously the same in the same way, there would be no need to ask separately. The revelation itself teaches the reader to think structurally. The crucial issue, then, becomes the meaning of the phrase it is Christ. Doctrine and Covenants 113, 2. In the framework of this book, that answer is not being read as a forced collapse into Jesus Christ in the exclusive sense modern readers often assume automatically. The word Christ is itself a title. It means anointed one. This matters profoundly because the revelation does not say, it is Jesus Christ, but it is Christ. The distinction is not trivial. It opens the possibility that the answer is functioning in title form. In the framework of this book, that title is being read within the ordered structure of the final dispensation, and therefore the stem is understood as Messiah ben Joseph, the latter anointed one of the final redemptive phase, not Jesus Christ in his exclusive role as Messiah ben Judah. This reading does not diminish Jesus Christ. On the contrary, it protects the uniqueness of his atoning office. The book has already established that Isaiah 53 belongs uniquely to Messiah ben Judah, Jesus Christ, who alone redeems from sin, death, hell, and transgression. But Scripture also uses redemptive and anointed language in a broader ordered sense. There is a latter bondage breaking, remnant gathering, Babylon exposing work that does not belong to Christ's atoning office and yet is still messianic in the sense of being divinely anointed. In the framework of this study, that latter role belongs to Messiah ben Joseph. He is therefore understood as the stem of the final dispensation, the latter anointed witness through whom the remnant is awakened, gathered, and prepared for Zion. Within this same structure, Joseph Smith is not the stem. He is the Elias of the last dispensation. This distinction is essential. Joseph Smith is foundational, necessary, and central. He restores scripture, keys, priesthood, ordinances, and the opening movement of the latter work. He stands at the threshold of Zion's redemption as the preparatory servant who opens the way, much as John the Baptist stood as Elias before the earthly ministry of Jesus Christ. To make Joseph Smith the Elias rather than the stem in this framework is not to diminish him. It is to preserve the internal order of the final dispensation. He is the opener, the restorer, the beginning servant, the threshold figure through whom the latter work is set in motion. Once Joseph Smith is understood as Elias and Messiah ben Joseph as the stem, the rest of the structure in Isaiah 11 and Doctrine and Covenants 113 comes into clearer focus. The rod, the root, and by implication the branch are not stray symbols with no ordered relation. In this book's framework, they are assisting mighty and strong servants under the stem. Doctrine and Covenants 113 says of the root that it is a descendant of Jesse, as well as of Joseph, unto whom rightly belongs the priesthood, and the keys of the kingdom, for an ensign, and for the gathering of my people in the last days. Doctrine and Covenants 113, 5-6. The language is strikingly administrative and covenantal. Priesthood, keys, ensign, and gathering are all in view. The root is not merely a decorative theological image. He belongs to the functional order of the latter work. The same is true, in this framework, of the rod and the branch. Together they stand as assisting latter servants working under the stem within the final redemptive structure. This is one of the reasons the mixed Jesse-Joseph lineage in these passages matters so much. The revelation refuses a simplistic tribal reading. The latter work is not merely Ephraimite in a narrow sense, nor merely Judahite in a narrow sense. It is convergent. The root is a descendant of Jesse, as well as of Joseph. Doctrine and Covenants 113, 6. This fits the whole burden of the book. The final work is deeply Josephite in mission and burden, but it is not cut off from the covenant inheritance represented by Jesse. Rather, the latter dispensation gathers, joins, and restores the wider covenant house in preparation for the return of Messiah ben Judah. The ensign language confirms that this is not a hidden structure for its own sake. The ensign is a raised signal. It is a visible standard. Isaiah says the root of Jesse shall stand for an ensign of the people, Isaiah 11:10, and that the Lord will set up an ensign for the nations, Isaiah 11:12. An ensign gathers. It summons. It calls. That means the latter servant structure of Isaiah 11 and Doctrine and Covenants 113 is never merely contemplative or symbolic. It is tied directly to the gathering of Israel, the outcasts, the dispersed, and the nations. The servant architecture exists for covenant action. This is also why the book's recurring refrain must appear here with special force. Zion is not an apocalypse retreat. The gathering is for the redemption of a people. Isaiah 11 and Doctrine and Covenants 113 do not present stem, rod, root, branch, priesthood, keys, and ensign merely so that frightened people can run from destruction. These things belong to the ordered redemption of Israel and the preparation of Zion. The latter servants do not simply help people hide. They help gather, order, teach, and prepare a covenant body for the life God requires. The whole servant structure is therefore teleological. It moves toward Zion, not just toward escape. The rod, the root, and the branch also make better sense when seen in relation to an earlier dispensational pattern. In the meridian of time, John the Baptist stands as Elias, Jesus Christ ministers as Messiah ben Judah, and Peter, James, and John serve as assisting witnesses under him. In the framework of this book, the final dispensation mirrors that pattern in ordered form. Joseph Smith stands as Elias, Messiah ben Joseph serves as the stem, and the rod, root, and branch stand as assisting mighty and strong servants under him. This is not a claim that the offices are identical in all details. It is a claim that sacred history preserves patterned order. God does not work randomly. He works by heavenly structure mirrored in earthly dispensations. This structured reading also explains why so many latter-day readers miss the force of Doctrine and Covenants 113. If one begins with the assumption that every servant term must collapse directly into Jesus Christ in the same immediate sense, then the chapter loses its ordered function. But if one allows Christ to function in title form as Anointed One, and if one reads the passage in relation to the final redemptive phase of gathering Israel and preparing Zion, then the architecture of the last dispensation emerges with much greater coherence. The stem is the latter anointed witness, the assisting servants stand under him. Joseph Smith remains the great preparatory Elias, and the whole structure serves the gathering of Israel and the redemption of Zion. For that reason, Isaiah 11 and Doctrine and Covenants 113 stand at the heart of the hidden servant theology of this book. They show that the latter work is not amorphous. It is ordered. It has stages, servants, priesthood functions, and gathering purposes. The hidden servant does not appear in isolation. He appears within a revealed latter framework already anticipated in Isaiah and clarified in Restoration Scripture. This is why these texts are not peripheral. They are hinged texts. Through them, the reader begins to see that the final dispensation has internal structure, and that the hidden servant belongs inside that structure rather than outside it.